What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Movies That Make You podcast. Season 2 is in full gear, and so we are super excited for what we got going on this season. Just to let you know what that means, we still have our weekly Prepisodes where we discuss movies to watch in preparation for a new release hitting theaters. I got my buddy POPpaGoss on those each and every week. Those drop on Mondays at 6 a.m. Also, we have our Creators Conversations. This is where we're interviewing people from the business and beyond to discuss what they do to create and how they create their art. So be on the lookout for that on YouTube. We're also doing our monthly watch-alongs where we pick a movie to watch. We live stream our conversation while we're watching the film on YouTube. This week, we've got the toy Saga featuring Wes Clark, writer and director of How to Start a Cult in 5 Easy Steps. We're going to be talking about all the prior Toy Story movies, all in preparation for Toy Story 5 hitting theaters Friday. We hope you also check out our website at moviesthatmakeyoupodcast.com. There you can see all of our social links. You can listen to the podcast. You can watch the podcast. We also have our merch store. You can find tons of merch for Movies That Make You and our friends. We also have a link to our letterbox where you can see all the movies that we watch in preparation for the new releases, but also the movies that make you laugh, the movies that make you cry, the movies that make you scream, and everything in between. So before we get to this week's episode, let's check out what we got coming up on the Movies That Make You podcast. On Sunday, June 21st at 6 p.m., we're going to do our 35th anniversary watch-along of The Rocketeer. This is a great film that we watched growing up, and we're excited to watch it with you. We've got myself, POPpaGoss, and Corey of Wilkie's Movies and Music, so check it out. Next week, we've got Girl Power featuring Brian Garner, who is a podcaster for Be More Super and SWAU YouTube channels. We're going to be talking about a bunch of female superhero films, all in preparation for Supergirl hitting theaters that Friday. The week after that, we're going to be having Zeke back on the show to talk about our top 5 Illumination animated films in preparation for Minions and Monsters hitting theaters that Friday. They've made some good ones. Let's see how this one measures up. On July 3rd, we've got our 35th anniversary of Terminator 2. Terminator 2 is 35 years old, and we're going to watch it along with you, and we hope you'll join us. The week after that, we've got top 5 Disney films with Aaron and Kyle from ZombieCon Volume 1. You know them, you love them. They're going to be back. A little bit off the zombie brand. Talk about our favorite Disney films, all in preparation for the live-action Moana hitting theaters that Friday. The week after that, we've got Papa Knot back in the house again for the Odyssey Prepisode. We're going to be talking about Troy, 300, and Oh Brother Where Art Thou. It's going to be an epic episode you do not want to miss. Hope those episodes excite you. So without further ado, let's get to the podcast. We are back with another episode of the Movies That Make You podcast. I'm Sprang. I'm here. I've got my co-host POPpaGoss here. What's up, buddy?
What's up, buddy?
And we are very excited to welcome back one of our creative conversations. He's coming back for a Prepisode, and that is Mr. Wes Clark, director and writer of How to Start a Cult in 5 Easy Steps. What's happening, my man?
Not much. Thanks for having me. Glad to be back.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
We had a great time, on that Creators Conversations, one of the early ones that we did. I'm very excited, about the movie, and you and Halston were just amazing guests and both agreed that you wanted to come on a Prepisode. So we're excited to have you here. And we're going to be talking about all the Toy Story movies in preparation for Toy Story 5 that's dropping in theaters this Friday. So we're excited about that. We're going to talk about each movie and kind of the themes of the movie, how they impacted us. And then we'll kind of enjoy that conversation. But before we jump into the movies, I do like to ask our guests on the Prepisodes to just share a little bit about what movies, where the movies came from for you. Like, where did your love of movies stem from? I know you may have shared some on the Creators Conversation, but for the audience that hasn't checked that out, let's hear kind of how you and movies began the relationship.
Yeah, well, it started without any friends, as for many people who love movies start. Yeah, I was pretty lonely as a child, and so I would just kind of come home and do my thing. Shockingly, I did very well in school. So if it wasn't head in the book, it was head on the screen watching a movie. And then everything changed when I got my license and I could drive, and suddenly the movie theater was unbelievably accessible. But I was that weird one who would be like the only guy in the theater on a Tuesday at 11 and then wake up at 8 and go to school. So, such is life. I still do that. Thank God for the Movie Pass. That is shockingly cheap considering if you go to more than one movie a month, you're saving actually can be like a lot of money. So, thank God for that. My girlfriend's German. Her brother was complaining to me over Christmas that in Germany they don't do that. They don't have a pass, so he can't go to the movies that often.
Mm.
So sucks to suck. But yeah, so that's honestly where it comes from. It's honestly just always been a part of my life.
Yeah.
And I love sharing it, talking about it with, people who also love movies. So glad to be
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. Do you have one movie or franchise in particular that really hooked you in early on?
Ah, I have seen Good Will Hunting maybe 25, 30 times, like a
Nice.
genuine 25, 30 times. But I don't know, I watched a lot of Hitchcock when I was younger. Vertigo is one of my top movies of all time, quite frankly. Also seen that probably about 20 something times. So anything and everything. It used to be the cable day. I'm young. Okay. I'm way younger than you guys. I'm 20. But it was in the cable days. I didn't get a phone until I was like 9, which nowadays is like really late. But before then, it was always you came home from dinner, with the family, and it was like, what's on? And it was always the same, like The Notebook for some reason was just always on, or like The Avengers was just always on. So that stuff was really kind of instrumental in my filmmaking as well. Because now I've made 2 movies. People are like, "Oh, how did you get that?" I didn't go to film school, which, by the way, don't go to film school if you're considering it, people. Please don't do that. Save your money. But, it like, that stuff, whether I want it to or not, is just, like, in there now. It's just
Yeah,
stuck. So
right.
and Toy Story, quite frankly, I've seen all of the Toy Stories. I very much am gonna go, this weekend to go see the next one. So,
Nice.
yeah, I mean, anything and everything, really.
Yeah, that's awesome. Growing up, the Disney films were always on our ticket. I remember one of the movies that we went to. We were just going to the mall to shop, and then my mom was like, "Well, you want to see a movie?" And it was like the most random thing, and it was one of those cool memories. And it was Little Mermaid when it was in the theater opening weekend or whatever. So we just went on a Saturday afternoon. Loved it because of the music and the crab and the island adventure, all that stuff. And I just fell in love with that. That's not one of the first movies I watched, but it's got one of those core memories. And I think as I get older, it's kind of like you. I want to understand the broader scope of movies. I think sometimes we can get stuck and kind of just liking, I just like the action movies. And I just like the comic book movies. And one of the things that we try to do is branch out of that and find those movies that are more obscure, at least from the pop culture. Even though I might lean on the Oscars to tell me a little bit about, like, at least getting me out of my comfort zone, because there's usually a few of those that are like, off the beaten path. But at least showing me some directors that I should keep an eye on, or some actors, and then kind of going down that catalog. But yeah.
I will tell you right now, I get asked this all the time, every single time the Oscar season comes around, and I'll be honest with you, I don't even know when the Oscar seasons are. I don't care anymore. It's such a if you can just outbid and outspend everyone else, you will win. To the point where they literally are buying billboards on the routes for the executives. I mean, but thank God for the first time ever now you have to actually watch the movie in order to score it or not. But I mean, I
Right.
I gotta be honest with you, it's almost a negative in my mind. Like, "Oh, they won? All right." Like, I don't know.
Right.
I can
I
see that.
almost
Yeah.
rather look at what's in, like, Regal and then, like, what's past, like, 1 week in Regal, because 'cause that'll tell me that they've actually, like, want it to be out in theaters for a long time, and it might actually be worth going to see. Um,
Okay.
but
Yeah. No, that's a
whatever,
good that's a
the
good
Oscars
plan.
used to mean something, so,
Sure,
yeah.
sure, sure, sure. And I just, it's a fun pastime for me. I still enjoy it. But I totally get it. And it does feel a lot of times like it's just a big fabrication. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
feel
for
bad.
sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of fabrications, we're talking about toys, which are fabricated friends. How do you like that transition? Um, we're gonna jump into it. Thank you so much for sharing that story, Wes. Appreciate that, and excited to kind of hear your thoughts on Toy Story as we talk through these movies. Toy Story One, it was revolutionary at the time. I think it was the first Pixar film. It took everybody by storm. People were blown away by the animation, but also I think the story was one that was very touching and meaningful. Woody is our kid's favorite toy, and he has a birthday and gets a new toy, which is a spaceman. Woody's a cowboy. So we're now seeing this kind of battle of the eras of what's cool and what's not. And will Andy keep Woody around if he's got this cool new toy. And so it dives a little bit into that conflict there. We also have a neighbor kid that loves to destroy toys, ends up being kind of the big bad in the film. And at the end, the toys triumph over Sid with an amazing, horrifying kind of arrival and like kind of rising from the sand, and all the toys walking towards him, and Woody spinning his head around like Regan in The Exorcist. And I was just like, it's kind of this really fun horror snapshot in the middle of this kids movie. They end up saving the day. Woody and Buzz become best friends, and Andy can have room in his life for all of his toys. So that's a little bit of a quick summary off the top of the head. Wes, tell us a little bit. You said you've loved these growing up. What does Toy Story 1 mean to you? What stands out?
Yeah, I mean, great summary. First off, I rewatched it today. It's the only one I rewatch. I know all of them essentially,
Sure.
quite frankly, but good time to rewatch it. Yeah, I think the thing for me, it sets everything in motion in a way that is just so necessary. I think the reason for me that it does so well and it got such a good response is just the nostalgia. No matter whether you're the kid who's dragging the parent to go or the parent who's maybe interested because the trailer was actually pretty good, you're still like there's something there for you, right? Whether it's you're currently in your childhood and it's fascinating to you, or it's oh wow, like it's interesting. I remember when I was that age. And then honestly, rewatching it today, it reminded me how funny it is too.
Hmm.
Um, I know it's not from the first movie, so it's weird, whatever. But from the second one, the one that always stood out to me is always when the piggy bank loses its like underbelly thing and
Yeah.
it shies away and says, like, "Don't look at me." Like, it's just little comments like that, little jokes like that. And
Yeah.
honestly, like, if you watched, Disney in the early 2000s, everyone was ripping off Toy Story. I mean, Toy Story was the first one to be like, "Yes, we're for kids. Keep it light, keep it friendly, but
Hmm.
also we can have these innuendos that, like, adults will understand and are playful." Uh,
Yep.
so, like, that all that stuff is just great.
Yeah.
Um I don't know. There's like a whole bunch of like deeper messaging I can go into too. I don't know if we want to go into
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, but okay. So like the one I
Yeah.
was thinking the most, so particularly for the first one, not it comes out a little bit later actually too. In the fourth one, when you get to Forky,
Forky. Yep.
Forky. But the idea of like being cognizant, being alive, and then also self-preservation is really interesting for me in
Hmm.
Toy Story 1. So Forky has this thing where it, they, she, whatever the hell the thing is, she thinks that she's like, I'm a fork, like I'm meant for
I'm
soups. Like she
trash. Yeah.
right, all the time. And
Yeah.
so, it's really interesting that Woody and all the other toys are fully aware they're toys. Like they're completely aware. But then Buzz comes in and he has no idea. And obviously he has this whole coming of
Hmm.
age essentially of realization of, oh my God, right? Like it's like a human figuring out that it's a simulation. It's like, oh my God, like which pill? Right?
Yeah.
It's Neo's
Yeah.
question. Um, the one point that always gets me about the first movie though, and I don't think it's an oversight. I think that there's like a deeper message there that whatever, you can go in whichever direction you want. But the biggest moment for me is when um Woody is like able to shout like I think Anna to the sister. So clearly they're able to communicate with humans if they choose to.
Hmm.
But the idea of self-preservation when he's getting the laser the sunbeam through the whatever the little
Yeah.
like
The
The
magnifying
magnifying
glass or whatever.
glass.
magnifying
Yeah.
glass that
Yeah.
like the fact that he would just stay completely there and like that would be it. But also he is technically able to interact with humans. Like that's always the like
Hmm.
contradiction for me. That's always a little like, huh, okay, interesting. What are they saying to us? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Minus that, the whole thing makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many great kind of for me, there's so many fun references in it. I know the sergeant that's the little army man, the sergeant, it's voiced by the guy that's the sergeant in Full Metal Jacket. And so so it's a
Yeah.
great voice. It's one
Arlie Ermy.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then I think there's the globe when the globe is kind of attack Woody that actually throws in the Indiana Jones theme We've got Star Wars references where there's a weapon that can destroy planets, and I have the plans to show its only weakness. Like, there's so many things like that. Um, and then I think too, one of the themes, one of the minor themes is that Sid's destroyed all those toys and manipulated all the toys and mutated all the toys and made them looking ugly and scary. And Woody and Buzz at first are very scared of these toys. They think because they look ugly, because they look scary, they must be wanting to harm us. And then once they actually heal, once they actually put Buzz back together, that's when Woody goes, "Oh, wow, you guys are kind and generous. I don't need to judge a kind of a simple, I don't need to judge a book by its cover." That I think is meaningful for kids to understand that, like, just because someone looks different, just because someone's a new kid in the toy room, we need to accept everybody and love everybody for who they are and know that we can't just kind of cast them off. So there's that theme. And I also think the theme for Woody is Woody, being happy with who you are, being recognized. You don't have to be a space ranger to be cool and to be loved. You can be a cowboy, and that's going to earn love. All you have to do is love your child, love your kid, be there for your kid, and they will show you love in return. So I think that's a common theme that Woody finds his purpose in life is to make sure that these kids are happy, and he's going to do whatever it takes. Through all four of these films, he's going to do what it takes to try and preserve that child too, and kind of encourage that child to know that they're loved and that they're taken care of. So very cool stuff. Josh, why don't you share? Do you got anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, so the Toy Story movies, I think like Wes, like I've seen them so many times, mainly because of my son. But I mean, I grew up on I remember what a big deal like the first one was when it came out. And 1995 was like, it was a huge year for movies. Like, I mean, the mid '90s to late '90s was more like comedy driven. Like, not we hadn't gotten to like the raunchy comedies yet. It was more like the PG-13 comedies, Jim Carrey, all that stuff. But I mean, we had like the highest grossing movie other than Toy Story that year was Seven, David Fincher, which is surprising. But yeah, it made, at the time it made 327 million worldwide, which doesn't sound like a lot today's box office, but I mean, if you take it adjusted, I'm sure it's a pretty big number. Apollo 13 came out that year. Batman Forever came out that year. Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls, the sequel to Ace Ventura. Goldeneye, regarded as one of the best James Bond movies. Casper, which was like pretty revolutionary from the special effects standpoint. Jumanji. I mean, you name it, they had a lot of sequels and stuff, but like there were some inventive films that came out too. But other than that, it became the first animated film to be nominated for best screenplay. I
Okay.
think since then, I'm not sure if I'm assuming at least one or two other animated films have had that, but that's a pretty big deal. I mean, especially when that's mainly saved for live action form. They don't usually do that.
Did you see who
Um,
was on the screenplay? Joss
yeah,
Whedon.
so yeah, I was
Yeah.
getting to that. Yeah,
I'm sorry, buddy. I'm
no, you're
sorry.
good. No, yeah, so yeah, we'll just get into the script now. But Joss Whedon was one of the co-writers, so he at the time was not. He kind of was about to become Joss Whedon because like Buffy, he wrote the movie that had Christy Swanson and Paul Rubens. Um, so he did the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie, he wrote that script, and then eventually the TV show, Sarah Michelle Gellar took off and all that, but he had really just worked on, Roseanne. He was like a writer for a lot of like one season of Roseanne. So Joss Whedon got thrown in there. Another huge name that, we have to thank for Pixar in general is Steve Jobs. I mean, Steve Jobs he had at the time, he had bought Lucasfilm's computer graphics department or whatever. And then he changed the name to Pixar, obviously. And they were kind of just taking a shot. He used his own money too. He used I think he bought it for I think he invested 10 million of his own money at the time. And he had been in between. I think he didn't get fired from Apple, I don't think, but he like left Apple at the time, and then
Yeah.
and then he got back into it towards the end of his career and the end of his life. But they were really banking on, this to take off, and it was revolutionary. I mean, I remember that was the big storyline when it first came out. Was like, let's see, I would have been 7 years old when the first Toy Story came out. I remember just like how epic it was, like to go to the theater, and we had never seen an animated film like that before, and we'd never seen characters move like that and stuff like that. So very revolutionary, but, Steve Jobs was a huge, person to thank for that taking off. Um, just some fun facts about Sid. So they based the character of Sid off of an employee, from Pixar, a former employee from Pixar Studios, who they used to walk by his office, and he'd be, like, taking apart toys and, like, putting them on different bodies,
Interesting.
and he was
Yeah.
just being kinda weird. So they based Sid off of that. And then, one of my favorite little nuggets in Toy Story is the carpet, in Sid's house is the same carpet from The Shining, from the Overlook Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
If you look especially in the hallway, it's the same exact layout. And I think there's even like an Apollo whatever reference to, I think, in there, if I'm not mistaken. But, like one of the toys has like a Apollo reference or something. But I love that because I love The Shining. So I think that's really funny that they put it as Sid's carpet, because obviously
Mm-hmm.
they were all movie lovers first before they took off with Pixar. So just a fun one. But yeah, it's held up over time, obviously, and now we're already on the fifth one coming out. So where it all started, 1995.
Yeah, crazy. Just celebrated its 30th anniversary. About to reach the fifth one,
That's
30,
nuts.
31 years later. That's awesome.
Nice.
All
Yeah,
right.
Toy Story one's good.
So one thing to touch on as like a fun transition is that at the end of Toy Story, they're sitting around listening to the radio and listening because it's Christmas, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have to be scared because we're buds, so we don't have to be scared of anything." And then he gets a puppy, and so I can imagine that toys in general are usually would be scared of puppies because puppies chew on toys. But what we get in Toy Story 2 is the opening scene is Woody actually likes the dog and plays with the dog and rides on the dog to save the day in one of the opening scenes. So pretty fun. The main gist of Toy Story 2 is the mom. Well, Woody gets injured when Andy's going away to cowboy camp, and the mom puts him on a shelf, and so now they're all scared. Is Woody gonna survive? Is Woody gonna come back, or is Woody gonna be lost forever, like the Misfit toys? And she's also doing a yard sale, and so she's taking some toys to sell in the yard sale. Woody's trying to save them. When he does, he actually gets lost out in the yard sale. And there is a person that's the owner of a toy of Al's Toy Barn. Al notices this fancy old toy cowboy, Woody, and he knows it's worth a lot of money. And so that's voiced awesomely by Wayne Knight. Great voice actor in this movie for that. And what we find out is that Woody has a backstory. Woody has a cartoon or an animated puppeteer show, and there's these other characters. And so we get introduced to Bullseye, who's the horse. We get introduced to Jesse, and we get introduced to Stinky Pete, who is like the prospector. And they are excited that Woody's there because now they know that they could be sold into a museum and they don't have to be stuck in storage anymore. But come to find out, there's a lot of backstory around that, and the Stinky Pete is like been trying to manipulate Woody into sticking around with them, but Woody continually is trying to get back to Andy because Andy's his kid. The other toys with Buzz Lightyear kind of leading the way, they are all trying to rescue Woody. It kind of culminates in this awesome like airport situation, and there's even like a fun like train reference where the cowboy has to jump on the train and then jump from car to car of the train, and it's the luggage carrier, which I thought was great. Lots of fun references to referencing back to even Buzz's origin story or Buzz's backstory with the Zurg, which is the evil alien empire that Buzz is sworn his life against. But yeah, just we get a lot of backstory from Jesse and all the others, and it just kind of expands on the universe. But the main gist, I think, is that they finally get rescued, and they also rescue Jesse and Bullseye to come with them to be a part of the family. And now Andy comes back from cowboy camp, and he has a bunch of cool new cowboy toys to celebrate with. So that's me trying to say it in a nutshell. It was a little bit longer than a nutshell, but Wes, what are your thoughts? What are some of your thoughts for Toy Story 2?
Yes, I'll start off with a hot take here. I think Toy Story 3 to me is a bit of a letdown. I think that Toy Story 2
Interesting. Okay.
is the one that kind of expands the world into a place that allows us to be where we are now. I think that 2 opens the eyes to, hey, we don't have to be stuck in the house. We don't have to have everything come back to the house either. Like we can go and we can exist and we can interact with the world. And obviously in the first one ends with the dog chasing Buzz on the back of the toy car and like then causes all the car accident, right? So you kind of have some level of interaction with the real world.
Mm-hmm.
But the second one, I mean, large swaths of the movie is them interacting with the real world in a way that really is quite limited in 1, and I still think is quite limited again in 3, but then 4 comes back, and it seems like from the trailers, at least 5 will be as well. The second thing here is I would say there's kind of 2 other points for me. One is that I think for 2, it's really interesting because 1 and 2 have humans as the opposition, as the antagonists, whereas 3, 4, and 5 are toy-based.
Mm-hmm.
The difference though, and it's a really big difference, is that the first one, the kid is, I mean, clearly a menace, right? And like almost a caricature kind of capacity. Whereas the second one, like that's just a dude who, quite frankly, I mean, gave us one of the best scenes in all of animation, which is him cleaning
Mm-hmm.
Woody, which is
But
a
yeah, that
beautiful
was
sequence.
beautiful.
I mean, one of the best sequences of all time.
And
You know,
it's the same old guy from the chess scene in that was the prequel to Toy Story 1, or like the little, so it's a
yes,
nice little of those Pixar shorts.
yep. I knew exactly where you're going. Yes. And like, so, it's interesting having it be human for the last time, but like, in a kind of positive way, almost like they're getting us out of that kind of world. Um, and then I think the last one is this script is much more of a hero's journey arc to the max. Like this is like studio gold. This is what the big studios want is too. And I think that that's why it goes down because I think to a certain extent, people felt it was maybe unoriginal, maybe. I don't know. Whereas the first one doesn't necessarily, I mean, it still follows very similar heroes arc, all that, but it's not as cookie cutter. Whereas there are, I mean, hundreds of big movies that follow this. There's a status quo world, something happens. I mean, literally Toy Story 4 is this, right?
Mhm.
Forky leaves the status quo world. We have to go get him. All right, let's jump out. Like we got to find our way back. I mean, and then there's a new reality, right? So, I mean, it's as cookie cutter as you can get. But that being said, they do a lot of those same tactics that they did 4 years earlier with having it be kind of funny, right? This is the one where you have
Yeah.
that cork comes out of the belly and oh my God. Uh, they're also really unbelievably talented at doing suspense and humor at the same time, which is a deadly combo.
Mhm.
The most obvious, which is now the ultimate Halloween costume if you have a friend group above 4, which is wearing cones, right? And walking cones. That scene when the truck swerves around and the giant roller
Yeah.
pipe starts rolling and almost crushes them, and he has to, like Indiana Jones, almost he has to grab his foot off of the gum, which
Mhm.
again is a recall to the first movie when Woody lays down and the tire almost crushes him in the parking lot, like
Mhm.
little things like that where it's like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, stop, everything's good, are
Mhm.
just great, and it keeps your attention, and it's funny. So, I mean, these movies do no wrong. They push the line of the mechanics, how it looks, right? First of its kind to do that stuff. But then the
Mhm.
story is just foundational. And,
Mhm.
we can say all we want. And I know the rating is slightly lower for 2, although I will say for a second movie in a series, it still scores really good. It was an 88.
Mhm.
The first was 100 on Rotten Tomatoes, second's an 88, third is a 92, and then the fourth was an 84. So,
Yeah. S
I
they're
mean,
they're
pretty
still
good.
batting 1,000. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
mean, my god. So, you know,
Yeah.
I love the second one. I actually think it's more foundational perhaps than certainly 3. I think 3 is a step back, but we'll get to that one. Yeah.
Sure. It does introduce Joan Cusack voicing Jesse, and gives us one of the saddest songs in movie history, with the song about, you know, when somebody loves you.
When somebody loves me,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness. Like Jesse, it tells the story of Jesse and how she got lost. And that's kind of a common theme that's in 3 as well, because Lotso and the other big baby and the clown dude, they get lost as well. And that's a fear, I'm sure, by toys. Like, don't be left behind, don't be left behind. But this one is kind of clear. Like, she knows what that life is like, and she knows that the loss of that kid is so painful. She's fine with not having a kid anymore. She's fine with just being stuck in a museum, and everybody can just look at her and she can just be happy out of the box. But just yeah, so there's some of that. I do think that Stinky Pete or Sneaky Pete, whichever it was, is kind of bridging the gap, I think, a little bit with the human, in that, like, he does kind of become a second antagonist with kind of trying to manipulate Woody, like, with some codependency, but also, like, sabotage his ability to get out of there. And so that kind of, I think, bridges a gap when we get to the toys being the villain in 3 and 4. Um, Mrs. Potato Head, another Seinfeld actress, George's mom, does a great job. Perfect. Yeah, that's another toy that's introduced, that's announced in the final moments of Toy Story 1, is that Mrs. Potato Head, and they're all like, you know, giving him elbows and stuff. So now he's getting married. And then the little green squishy things that we get in the first one, they're now his kids because he saved them. And it's just hilarious. One of the other quotes I thought was just so funny is that when Rex spills something, the pig says, "Watch out, Godspilla." I just thought
Yeah,
that was
Godzilla.
just a great thing. Um, and then I think, yeah, it does. Well, it does introduce Zurg, and it does the breathing is Darth Vader's breathing. It
Right.
has the 2001 theme, when Buzz is floating in that opening sequence, and then at the end, when they're trying to get out of the toy store, Zurg says, "I am your father." Great Star Wars reference. And then when they're about to leave, they're like, "Buzz, the second Buzz, you want to come with me?" He's like, "No, I want to play with my dad." And it's just like this silly kind of play on that whole thing. I think, there's also the Jurassic Park reference when they're driving the car, and the Rex is trying to chase after them, trying to get back in the car. There's the Rock and Sock'em moment where they're yelling at each other and then they punch each other, which is so fun. And then I'm your father. Yeah. So I just wanted to point out some of the funny things. Oh, we get introduced to Barbie for the first time in this one. There's like the whole Barbie, party going on, and everybody's like, "Oh, I want to, play with you guys." So it's pretty fun. Did you want to say something, Wes?
Yeah, I was just gonna. I want to piggyback on the Barbie thing. I meant to mention that. It's so funny how long it has taken for certain companies to wake up and realize that they have potentially the most expensive IP in the world, and that they haven't actually stretched it to its fullest extent.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the Mario Brother movies now have just made money. I mean, printed money. And much like Disney, where the movie itself is not actually the driver, it's driving people to then buy merch and to show up at their parks and spend, unfortunately, all of their life savings, it seems, at their parks, which is, a whole side issue. Um, the same thing here. It's like, hey, we'll do the Mario Brothers movie. Yeah, we'll make $1 billion. But the thing that people aren't paying attention to is then we're selling a lot more video games and a lot more merch and plushies and whatever. And so
Mm-hmm.
the idea that, Barbie came in and obviously then we get the live action, I mean, 20 something years later is
Mm-hmm.
honestly kind of baffling.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously worked out fine, but it's a little shocking that it took that long, because clearly someone back then was thinking, "Oh, wow, we have an opportunity to do, like, great brand integration here, like, really, really
Absolutely.
great integration." So,
Yeah.
just a
And then
little
I
shocking.
think, and then they expand on the Barbie and Ken stuff in Toy
Yep.
Story 3. That's
Uh-huh.
just hilarious too. So that's fun. All right, Josh, what you got, buddy? Backlot breakdown. What you got?
Yeah, just real quick too on the Barbie thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know the exact details of it, but I was reading about it when I was prepping for this. But I guess whatever the company is, I think it's Mattel that makes Barbie or whatever. But at the time, they didn't have faith in I guess in like toys, and I mean there were certain toy lines that did really well in the 90s and stuff, but Barbie hadn't really done anything new in a long time. So they finally came to their senses, and when they put tour guide Barbie, I don't think they prepared as well, but then they found out real fast like we got to make more Barbies going forward, cuz like it started tour guide Barbie was like an exclusive, I think, to Toys R Us or whatever when the movie came out and did really well. So they saw it flying off the shelf and they were finally like, all right, let's bring Barbie back. So I just think that's really interesting. And also I agree a lot with what Wes said. I think Toy Story 2 is it's one of my favorites, just because I remember the first time I watched it, and every time I watch it in between, like, it makes me laugh it's just got so many the comedic moments are so good.
Mhm.
The whole Zurg and Buzz, like, the not the real Buzz, but, like, the fake Buzz
Yeah.
toy, he like, playing he's like, "I'm gonna play catch with my dad," and he's like, "Go along, Buzzy." Like, I remember being a teenager or at 1999, I was like, "Man, this is so funny." Like,
Yeah.
I laughed my butt off, but yeah, there's just so many great comedic moments. Wayne Knight as Al is just great. My son really likes Toy Story 2 also, like, his first, Funko Pop recently was, Al in the chicken suit. I got him
Oh,
for him at
nice.
Walmart, and he loves that pop, so it's a really cool looking one too, so,
You know, it's
um
funny you bringing up the pops, but I was thinking when we were talking about Barbie. Barbie's the original pop, guys.
yeah,
Barbie
pretty much.
we have a standard look, but we're gonna dress them differently and sell them all for $20 a
Barbie,
pop,
G.I.
and
Joe,
yeah, yeah, it's
um
crazy.
yeah. Well, the Funko as a company, they technically started as a bobblehead company, so it was Wacky Wobblers, and they were started as that. So they had like Hanna-Barbera characters and like mascots for like food companies and stuff. That's what they started with, and they just made bobbleheads that did really well, and then that transformed into what it is now. So kind of crazy. And going back to the Mario thing, like Funko still doesn't have the rights to Mario, but if they ever get that, I mean, Mario's just still bringing in the cash flow. So, I mean, they don't need it, but like if they announce tomorrow, like they're making Mario Funko Pops, the world will burn probably. But um, there's there's a nod to the Buzz Lightyear in the first in the second movie, but from the first movie, when tour guide Barbie's driving down the aisle of the Buzz Lightyears, like all of them, and she says, "Back in 1995, short-sighted retailers did not order enough dolls to meet demand," and that actually like really happened in real life from the first movie, because they had little to no faith in Toy Story, just I think because it was so new, it was
Mhm.
such a new animation,
Yeah,
and I don't think they realized.
it wasn't an established IP, and so they don't
Yeah,
like many big studios, they don't trust things that they can't bank on, and so they're like, "It's just a new animated movie, it's not gonna do anything," and then
yeah.
it
I
blows up.
mean, toys had been selling, obviously, like, there's always been each decade, there's been some form of toy or collectible or something that you could play with, but yeah, like, toys in general, like, even cashing in on Toy Story 1, they didn't make enough, so, like, that line that Barbie says was thrown at those people for not having faith that Toy Story would sell. Um, Something real crazy that happened on the movie, I don't know if they ever found out who did it, but somebody working at Pixar accidentally put in the code RM star, and it deleted 90% of the movie. Thankfully, I don't know if she was like a tech person or she was like a I
The
forget,
intern or
tech
something like that?
director. She was
Okay,
like a
yeah.
technical director. But she had just had a child when they were trying to finish the movie, so she had made a copy to take home to work from home at the time. I mean, back then we didn't have like a lot of work from home, but she made a copy, so they were able to like kind of save most of the movie because she made that copy. And then I did read she just in 2023 they like they laid her off or whatever from Pixar, but yeah, at the time in 1999, she saved
She
Toy
saved
Story 2.
Toy Story.
They were like, I thought that would give you,
Right, life,
infinite life, but
right?
I guess not.
Lifetime
Um,
achievement, 10
and
year.
then
Nope.
and there's a Jesse. Jesse ends up becoming a really popular character. Like my son, he takes more to Jesse than he does. I mean, he likes Woody and Buzz, but like I feel like he takes to Jessie a little bit more. She's more animated, I guess. But um, there's a line that she shouts, "Sweet mother of Abraham Lincoln," and that's actually in reference to Tom Hanks in real life, because she's saying it to Woody because Tom Hanks's mother Nancy is a blood relative to Abraham Lincoln. Like
Nice.
Nancy's his Tom Hanks's mom's uncle or something is in the bloodline for Abraham Lincoln or something. So
Yeah.
that was a nod to Tom Hanks's real life, which is crazy.
Side
And
note,
then they had
I've got a buddy just to piggyback on that goes to the movies with me, and he's a descendant of John Wilkes Booth. So now we
no
have,
way.
we have both ends
That's
of that story.
whoa, that's crazy. That's a little spooky.
Yeah,
And then the last thing about Toy Story 2, there's a bunch of Bugs Life references because one of the co-directors of this was Lee Unkrich or whatever. And he's done Toy Story 2. Uh, he did Coco. He's doing the Coco 2. He did Finding Nemo. Um, he's worked on a bunch of the big like Pixar movies. So I think he worked a little bit on Bugs Life as well. And John Lasseter obviously did as well. But there's some Bug Life references. Andy's calendar has the ants from Bug's Life on like a leaf. If you look in the background,
nice.
Mr. Potato Head has a book that he's reading. I think he's reading it to the when
The
he
aliens.
says when he's trying to find her earrings or
Oh,
whatever.
okay.
There's a Bug's Life book that has next to him. Um, in the bloopers at the end credits, which they started doing. I think Toy Story 2 was the first Pixar movie to start doing that. If I'm remembering correctly, they started putting those like bloopers with other Pixar stuff thrown in too.
Hmm.
But Heimlich from Bug's Life, he's on the leaves, and Buzz, when they're going through the woods, he like
Yeah, swipes them
karate
off.
chops the leaf that that Heimlich's on. And then Al's penthouse has some abstract art that's Bug's Life. The elevator
Wow.
music at Al's apartment is the Bug's Life theme song. The tree in the flashback, the sad scene with Jesse, is apparently the same tree that from Bug's Life. And then the Chinese takeout box that they have that like hide in, that's Gypsy and Manny from Bug's Life. They like use that as their magic trick or whatever. But yeah, it's just so funny, and like some of the references and the comedic timing and stuff is so good. And also 1999, that was like a huge year because that was the year that everybody said, you know, we were when it hit 2000, we were pretty much everything was going to shut down. We had all this pandemonium for no reason. Star Wars Episode 1 came out in 1999, so that was like a huge deal because we hadn't seen a Star Wars movie in a long time. Sixth Sense came out that year, and then more importantly, one of Sprang's favorite movies of all time, The Matrix, came out that year. So
Yeah.
I just thought I'd put that was in the top 5 with Toy Story 2 for highest grossing movies of 99. So that's a
Nice.
fun little one nod
Yeah.
to our host.
Yes, appreciate it. And a plug for our anniversary episode we did last year or 2 years
Oh yeah.
ago, we did the
Yeah.
top movies of 1999 as the anniversary. So very cool. One of the other things I did want to mention, kind of in the whole like Toy Story adjacent Toy Story 2 is there's a fan theory that the girl that owned Jessie is Andy's mom because there's like the same hat that Andy wears is the one that's in the bedroom with when the song's going on. And so there's a fan theory that she lost, and that's why she got Andy into Cowboys. So who knows? But it's a fun little thing to think about. All righty, let's go ahead and go down to the downer, I guess, from these guys. These guys don't like Toy Story 3, but the basic story is that Andy's going to college, so he has to get rid of his toys. So they box up. He decides to put a bunch of them in a trash bag to go in the attic, and he's going to take Buzz and Woody with him to college. But the mom thinks she's throwing them away, and so she takes them to the trash. And they all think that Andy wanted to get rid of us. And so Woody's trying to tell him, no, he didn't. It was an accident. So they jump in a box to go to Sunnyside, which is a daycare school in the area. And so they're going to get thrown in. The toys are going to get donated. And now they have kids to play with them all the time. The problem is that one of the toy rooms has a bunch of little kids that like to beat up toys. And one of the toy rooms has older kids that are really kind and nice with the toys. And Lotso, the big pink bear that smells like strawberries, seemingly nice, decides he's going to put all the newbies in the room with all the kids that are going to tear them up and beat them up. And he's got this kind of control situation going on. Woody gets picked up by one of the daycare workers' daughters and ends up bringing him into her house, and he hears the story of Lotso and all the things that are going on at Sunnyside. So he vows he's going to go and rescue them from Sunnyside and break them out of Sunnyside so they can get back to Andy's attic and be ready when he wants to come back to them. We also get introduced to Ken, as we mentioned just a few minutes ago. This is one of the most hilarious characters in Toy Story 3. At the end of the day, they do get out of there, but there's a lot of moments where they think they're going to die. The big one that got me emotionally was, of course, the end. They get stuck into a trash dumpster, get taken to the incinerator, and they're all sitting there about to hold hands and be burned alive. And they end up being able to get rescued and get back to Andy's house. And he decides he's going to donate these toys to Bonnie and bring them to Bonnie because Woody writes a note on another kind of reference to how Woody and the others can interact with humans, but they have to do it in secret. He writes a note saying to Bonnie, and so he takes it to Bonnie and gives her all the toys. And that's how Toy Story 3 ends, is that Andy is kind of grown out of the toy, but he's giving them to a good home. So that's a little bit of Toy Story 3. Wes, let's hear it, man. Why does it suck so bad?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I don't want to make it sound terrible. It
No,
it grossed hundreds of millions of dollars, so it did well. I think that these movies have a real problem when they get to several movies, and I think we see this most with Avengers, where they feel like they have to one up the one before in order to keep audience attention. You get to the point where Avengers. Honestly, not even Avengers. The better example actually is Iron Man. The Iron Man movies get to a point where they are just unbelievably ridiculous because they just have to one up. You see the same thing with Fast and Furious, where now all of a sudden their cars in space. Like you just have to go beyond. And I think what we learn from TV shows is like that's total crap. I mean, Friends has grossed more money than any of these things, and there is not suddenly Friends in space. Like it is the same coffee shop with the same. It's just being original and being interesting. For me, the only thing you can't do is you can't regress. Okay, so I don't think that Toy Story falls into this Fast and Furious mode where they just go big, 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 big. I don't think they do that, but they do go backwards. And for me, the third one is very claustrophobic, and it's very. I mean, they're in jail. I mean, that's essentially what they are. And I think that doesn't serve it well from a tonal perspective. The incinerator scene is great. I love that. I will say, I don't have kids, but I will say that like generally for a kids movie, it's like pretty aggressive. I thought, to be honest with you. But like as an adult, I guess I don't care. But whatever. That's kind of my viewpoint there. And
Sure.
then I think that they had a lot more reliance on like bits, almost like the difference between maybe South Park, which is very narrative, and Family Guy, that's just like constantly having to jump back to bits in order to make a joke. I felt like this one had to do a lot more of that, where it was kind of one-off little moments rather than just the the moments and the story being funny itself. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's just honestly the biggest issue for me is just the tonal shift. I think it's a lot more dark. It's a lot more claustrophobic, and that constraining of the story is a little bit to the detriment. Um, Relative to 1 and 2 and certainly to 4. I think 4, we'll get there, but I think 4 honestly to me is Toy Story. I think, like, they really, like, took all the things they learned and they put it into this high def, really great animation style. So, but yeah, I mean, listen, again, if you're making hundreds of millions of dollars, who am I to argue? I do like, that they took time. That is the one thing about this franchise that I will, praise just endlessly, is that they took their time. They obviously the first and the second movie was only a couple years, 4 or 5 years, but 2 to 3 is 11 years. 3 to 4 is 8, 9, and then now it's been what, 7 years, 6 years since. So, I mean, I do like that. They let it breathe, and I think from an audience perspective, that's really, really helpful because it's not overbearing. You don't lose interest. There's this like yearning for it, and I think that's honestly why they kept up their rating so much. Is there's just such a need, there's such a want for it, and then they drop it, and
Mhm.
Pixar's very good at that. So yeah,
No, all great points, honestly. Like I totally can understand that and see that for sure. I think for me, the emotional of the kind of the ending of the story, I think the kid growing up and going to college, I think it all had some emotional kind of hooks that grabbed me and kind of kept me kind of in that mode. And I do think there, like I said, there's some funny moments. It does kind of piggyback a little bit on the first and second when it comes to Buzz. So the first one, Buzz is a toy that doesn't know he's a toy, and so there's that kind of like fun, playful, like there's a lot of stuff you can mine there for humor. In the second one, he is now kind of has to tell another Buzz that the other Buzz is a toy, and so there's play on that. In this one, he is reset by Lotso to become one of Lotso's henchmen. When they bring him back to a reality, he's speaking Spanish. He's in Spanish mode, and that just becomes this kind of funny, playful situation. And then, of course, he's in love with Jesse. He's kind of got amnesia, and he's in love with Jesse. And then at one point, he gets kind of his memory back. But there's just kind of the way that they played with with Buzz. Buzz is kind of like this. He's this comic relief sometimes, and he's not the leader. And even in Toy Story 4, which we'll get to, there's this hesitance that he has to leading because Woody's the leader. So in this one, he's kind of the comic relief, the sidekick to Woody's. Woody's always the one going and trying to save the day. One of the other things I think is interesting is there is a common theme also in that there's Woody is not believed by the other toys. When Woody in the first one, when Woody says, "No, we're fine. Buzz and I are good friends. I have to save them." They're like, "No, you wanted to kill him. And they just throw him out of the moving truck, and now he has to fend for himself. And they're like, "Oh no, we were wrong." And this one, it kind of does the same thing in that like Woody's saying, "Hey, you were not like thrown out. You were meant for the attic and it was an accident," and they don't believe him, and there's kind of like this animosity they have to Woody. And then of course it comes back that it's kind of funny that the Mrs. Potato Head's eye is left back at the house, and she sees that Andy was arguing with the mom and where are my toys, and which I honestly like, there's not too many college dudes out there like keeping like children's toys in the attic or taking children's toys to college. I mean toys that you play with, maybe they're taking their their pops that are to show off their awesome pops, but they're not like taking like play toys and stuffed animals to college usually. Maybe there's some, but anyway, it played well for the story that he is also having Andy's also having trouble letting go of that. And even when he picks up Woody at the end, when Bonnie goes, "Oh, what cowboy," and he grabs it, because this is his oldest toy and his oldest friend. And then he has to realize, oh no, I have to move on. And I think that also played into the emotions of us, having that same kind of thing. Like this is because at the time they were saying this is the last Toy Story, and then we get left kind of also we have to say goodbye to these toys as well. So But yeah, that's kind of all I got. I did get emotionally wrapped up in it, and I think it did win the Oscar that year, which we've already said may not mean nothing, but they did win the Oscar. I actually saw this one in the Oscar showcase that they had at AMC, where I saw all 10 Oscar nominations in 2 sittings. I didn't do the whole 24-hour thing, but got to see it that way. So that was a fun to see it that way. POPpaGoss, let's hear it. What you got for the Backlot breakdown?
Yeah, not a ton for this one. You guys covered most of it. Obviously, recently we found out that this is one of Quentin Tarantino's like favorite movies of all time. He also thinks he doesn't really include 4 at all. Just he thinks 1 through 3 is just a perfect trilogy. But yeah, he put this one. I believe he said. Let me see. Yeah, he said it was the second best film of the 21st century after Black Hawk Down. So he put both of those like close together, which is pretty crazy to come from that guy's mind. But yeah, at the time, so this was 2010. This was the first animated movie to make $1 billion, but obviously we've had a plenty in that amount of time.
Now,
So there's like 10 plus that have made 1 billion, including Toy Story 4. I think Toy Story 4 made more than Toy Story 3, but those two both made $1 billion. This one has the most characters of any Pixar movie, which is hard to believe, especially when you think about Finding Nemo or Finding Dory with all the ocean and vast amount of characters that could be in that. Um, Wally, I mean, I know there's just a few like main characters, but it's infinite space, so there could be plenty. But yeah, it had 302 characters, which is most in any Pixar film, which is nuts. I think a lot of that is mostly at the daycare, I believe, just because all the toys that are there. Um, this movie is also the first time we ever see Andy's last name, which is very important. So on a certificate on the bulletin board, it says that his last name is Davis. So Andy Davis.
there you
We
go.
see his last name for the first time. Um, One last thing, it was the not only did it make $1 billion, but it was the highest grossing film of 2010, which is crazy when you look at like the top 10 movies. Inception came out that year, Iron Man 2, which was really bad and not well received, but it's still Iron Man, so you'd think it would make a ton of money. I don't think it even cracked the top 5 that year. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 came out that year, so I mean, just a ton. And I think Toy Story 3 and then Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, the first one, though the both of those were the top 2 highest grossing that year, and they both made over $1 billion. So other than that, I mean, there was 2010 was a weird, we were getting into a new decade and pretty crazy. Yeah, Toy Story 3 is still fun, but I still kind of mostly agree with Wes. I like Toy Story 2 just a little bit more. So it comes to a good close for that trilogy, though. There's obviously tons of emotion. I think Toy Story 3 is definitely a little bit more emotional than 2, but I think 2 as a whole, I just enjoy more, and it's more lighthearted and the comedy, and it is just super funny. So, um, good overall, but I prefer 1 and 2 over 3. So,
Yeah. One of the other things I did want to mention too is that early in the animation with Toy Story 1 especially, like the humans were not they didn't look great. They were a little off, and then by the time we get to 3, the humans look a lot more kind of what we're used to with animation. So it's cool to kind of see that progression, and they avoided the humans for the most part in 1, just not showing the adults a whole lot, and they just kind of showed Andy and Sid really as the only kids that they saw, like the whole face and all that stuff. But by the time we get to Story 3, and I think that's probably also why there's so many characters in the movie, is because they have all the kids in the daycare and all the toys in the daycare, and so it adds to, I think, the numbers there. So very cool. All right, this is the last movie we're going to talk about today. Toy Story 4 Toy Story 4, we meet back up with Bonnie and all the toys, including the toys that she brought, that she had already. And there's fun to be had there, but Bonnie has to go to kindergarten and she can't take her toys with her. So while she's there, Woody snuck into her backpack, sees that she's struggling, she's not making any friends, so he digs in the trash and throws up onto the table some of these items of the trash, and Bonnie builds a toy, and it's Forky. Forky thinks he's trash. Forky continues to think he's trash for about 20 minutes, and Woody keeps trying to let Forky know, you're not trash, you're toy, and you are now loved. And it was a cool scene when it finally clicked for Forky, and the way that he said, Woody convinced him that he needed to get back to Bonnie. We also get introduced to, as Wes has been saying, we're out of the house. They're going to go on a trip and they're going to take the toys with them, but Forky gets lost on the way. He runs away. So Woody's trying to get Forky back to Bonnie. They come across a carnival and there's a lot of fun there. They also find Bo Peep, who had gotten sold or given away early in the movie. And then so we get reunited with Bo Peep and the sheep, which is fun. Some funny humor there. There's also, again, another doll that's a nefarious doll that wants to take Woody's voice box because hers is broken, and she thinks that if she gets a voice box that works, she'll be loved like other toys. And so she has the great, amazing, like Slappy the dummy characters that are all like her henchmen. That's super fun. There's also a cat that gets involved, and just a lot of things. I think you said it best, Wes, like a lot of things that they built on from the previous movies and learned from. Just a lot of fun action moments, fun humor. And then at the end of the day, they get Forky back to Bonnie, and all the toys are going to go back with Bonnie and get back in the RV, head on their trip. And Woody decides, I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay here because he was struggling. He missed Andy, missed that care, and Bonnie didn't love him as much as Andy did. So he's going to go live in the wild with Bonnie. And we see that in the trailer of of 5. He's got a bald spot, which is super hilarious, and they're blinding the other characters. But anyway, back to Toy Story 4. Wes, what you got, bud?
Yeah, so while I don't agree with Tarantino that apparently Toy Story 3 is the second best movie, which is it's not even whatever. It's not even the best movie of the 21st century. Spirited Away was, I think, 2001 or 2. Okay, so
Oh yeah, that movie is great.
yeah, so if I had to pick between the two, which one is better? Right? It's not even the best animated of the whatever. Anyway, that's a load of crap.
Well, and normally Quentin's just trying to he knows how to push everybody's buttons.
Yeah.
So he usually will say something, and then everybody thinks about it for the next 10 years. We're like, what was he talking about?
Yeah, and the sheep will just say he's right and move on. He's not right.
Right.
And I'm sure he was caught off guard by some paparazzi, and that's where whatever. That being said, I do agree that I think that the movies are best described as the trilogy. I mean, just like Star Wars, where it's like almost completely separate entities. I would do the same thing here. So I think that this is actually a different era of Toy Story in my eyes. What I really like about this one is that, I think in the, later 2000s, like since, 2018, maybe 2017, whatever, movies since then, there's been this big push to go very female heavy in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of these franchises do it horribly, horribly wrong, where they just take a man and then they just make it a woman. And then that's it. The ultimate example in my mind is a Men in Black, which is literally in the title Men in Black, and then they just literally make it a woman, and they're like, all right, it's the same movie, just it's it just doesn't work. It's not the same character, but you're trying to make the same character, whatever. What I will say here is I think that they are perhaps the best example of that, and being empowering in a positive way, and being entertaining. And I think the reason why it's so successful to me, and why if I had a daughter, great movie for them to watch, is you get these female characters that are uniquely their own characters, that have their unique skill sets that are to them. They're not trying to replace any other character that, used to be a man. There's no replacing. It's just a new character with a new point of view that is also compelling in its own way, that has an arc, that has her limitations, has her strengths, right? It's just a way better presentation to me. So I love that. I want to praise that. like to the nth degree. And I think honestly, just as a series, Toy Story does a great job of distinctly separating. I mean, obviously, the potato head, a wife and husband characters are great examples. Like they are together, obviously in a relationship, but they're such different characters, and they complain to each other all the time. I love that. Um, the second point here, I think, is that they were willing to push themselves in a way that is great in this movie, right? They broke beyond the barrier, and I also love that about this movie is that they were willing to make the hard decisions. I think a lot of people would have made Woody go back home at the end of this, and not leave him out there, right? And so, like, those are hard decisions as a filmmaker that a lot of people would have taken the safe route and had him come back like every other movie. But this one,
Mhm.
they're like, "You know what? No, we're gonna do something different. We're gonna make him stay out." So I love that. This is for me, it went back up in my mind over 3.
I agree with what you said. I have on my notes, like, just the fact that Bo Peep is just this action star is just really awesome. She kinda carries it and shows Woody the way, and then also doesn't depend on Woody. There's that moment where they're in the toy store or in their antique store, and she's like, "No, I'm finding, like, what I came here for. You need to stop worrying about Andy and worrying about Bonnie. Like, you just need to move on." And, there's a little bit of that kinda like, she'd been discarded, and so she had to move on, and Woody doesn't feel like he's been discarded. He feels like he's been kind of on loan to Bonnie, so he wants to kind of still hold on to that memory of Andy. But I think that it's both things that they can both equally stand together, and the feelings, and we've all been in similar situations emotionally. So I thought that was great. I thought it was funny, like Zeke got a kick out of Buzz's inner voice, because he doesn't understand the inner voice, and so he just keeps pushing the buttons, and trying. And that one scene where he's like, it worked a whole bunch, and then it's like, oh, mission's over. Nope. Oh, he just kept, and it says like 100 different versions of mission's over. Go back home. And he's like, no, I got to save Woody. I thought that was great. A lot of fun there. I think there's a lot of like little cameos, like Carl Weathers as Combat Carl was great. You also get Key and Peele, which is not necessarily cameos, but kind of a longer kind of cameo. Their banter is awesome, and then Keanu Reeves getting to be the Kaboom was great as well. So all characters that, when utilized, end up being giving lots of value to the story, and they serve a purpose for our story to move forward. They're not just thrown in there to be funny. They actually kind of add things to it. And I think too with Keanu with Kaboom, the the one that got me was, I can do this. I can do this. I can do it with my eyes closed. And they were like, "Wait, no, 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 don't do that." So lots of fun stuff there. I did think that there were some moments watching this where they borrowed from the movements of the characters. They borrowed from Lego Movie a little bit with the way that some of the characters moved. Um, Combat Carl in
Yeah,
particular, which
Carl.
the high fives were really funny because the one Combat Carl kept getting left hanging. That was funny. And I think even with when Kaboom is doing his stances, it looked like Emmett in Lego Movie. But
The Gray
that's
Cat.
not.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So yeah. But overall, I think one of the themes that stood out to me as being, or one of the movements that was beautiful, I thought, was at the end of the day, Woody saves his enemy, saves the nemesis when he realizes that she didn't get what she needed. He ends up going back and trying to help her find a family and say, "Hey, you can come back with us, and you can come back with Bonnie." And then she sees another girl that's lost, and so I thought that was a really cool thing. Like Lotso, he gets left behind, and he gets strapped to the front of a semi truck, so that kind of nemesis gets kind of discarded. In this one, I felt like it was a cool decision for them to have Woody go back for her and try to rescue her. So I thought that was cool. Yeah, and I think like I agree. Like I think it moved beyond all the normal things. It kept pushing uh, the spaces, lots of different arenas that they were in. The skunk car was great. Just yeah, lots of fun there. So, all right, Josh, you got a backlot breakdown for Toy Story 4.
Yeah, so not really anything super huge, but I just think it's kind of fun. it's a fun one in the franchise. Obviously, they didn't think they'd return. They did, and then they're doing the same thing now with
Hmm.
5 coming out, obviously, but, we're always gonna love this universe, so it's fun. But in the antique shop in Toy Story 4, there's a ton of references to, like, other Pixar movies, which I think is so much fun. Um, Also, before I talk about those real quick, speaking of the antique shop, they said at Pixar, like, that was one of the most challenging things to, m create into the animation that they do because they use a lot of actual physical items to, like, make their scenes come to life, and that stuff, all the corners and everything are just so compact with so much stuff, so they said it was really challenging, but luckily, they had a huge, like, backlot that they could kind of, toy around with stuff, but yeah, there's like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. There's the goggles from Finding Nemo, appear in the antique shop. One of the Scream canisters from Monsters Incorporated,
Nice.
also appears in like on the floor in the corner of the antique shop, which I think is funny just because like that's a completely different universe. That's not even a human universe. Um, there's another. I think there's just like random things just thrown in from other. I think from Coco, I think the record player from Coco is seen
Nice.
somewhere on against the wall. Um, and then I feel like I'm forgetting one, but yeah, there's like a bunch of Pixar related things. And then that year that it came out, it was a huge year for movies. Obviously, this was pre-pandemic, so I mean
Hmm.
we had a really big drought at the box office for a year and a half or so. Um, but we had 9 movies that made at least $1 billion that year in 2019. And then that was obviously Avengers Endgame that year, so
Hmm.
$2.7 billion. So that was the top earner. And Toy Story 4 was actually the eighth highest grossing that year. I mean, we had Joker, we had Spider-Man: Far From Home, Frozen 2, Captain Marvel, even Rise of Skywalker made a little bit more than Toy Story 4. So it was a huge year for the box office. But
Yeah.
overall, Toy Story 4, a lot of fun. There's great voices they added, like some old ones that returned, and then we had some like comedy legends. We had I think Betty White was a voice, Carol Burnett. We just they added those. Key and Peele were
Yeah.
voices. I mean, not for the whole movie, but they're really, they're always great. Um, and I really like the dummies, the
Hmm.
dummy bodyguards, because what you said earlier, they remind me so much of like Goosebumps, like Slappy and stuff. So
Hmm.
um, it's a fun one, but Keanu Reeves as Duke Kaboom, and Duke Kaboom we actually saw a year prior for the first time on the TV. There's an ad on Incredibles 2. Jack's watching a
Nice.
commercial for Duke Kaboom's like action figure, and Duke Kaboom's obviously based off of like Evil Knievel, but
Sure. Yeah.
like more spastic, and Keanu Reeves did a good job with him. But yeah, overall fun. I can't wait to see what they do with 5. Hopefully, it's got a gets back to like the roots and has a
Hmm.
lot of heart like they normally do, and I'm sure they'll find a way to tug at our heartstrings, and
For
hopefully we
sure.
can have some laughs thrown in there as well. So I'm
Yeah.
excited.
One of the things I thought was I wanted to mention too was I remember seeing the first advertisements of Toy Story 4, and it was Toy Story 5's premise. It was
Mm,
video games were going to be the premise of Toy Story
right.
4. They obviously changed. They obviously went a different direction, which I think was really good. I really liked that concept in Toy Story 4. But they were also like, well, we have this other concept we can pull out when we need to or if we want to. So I think that's fun. It'll be fun to kind of see what's Woody been up to,
Right.
like, it's all that, "Why are you wearing a robe? It's a poncho," like, so just some funny stuff there, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun one. I think a lot of people are gonna go see it because of the name Toy Story, but hopefully they deliver for sure.
We have Conan O'Brien too in this one. He's the potty training toy.
Nice.
So I saw the Funko Pop the other day. I was like, oh man, I bet he's gonna be funny.
That's amazing. Wes, thank you so much for being a part of this episode. Again, it was great to have you on as an interview, but it means a whole lot that you wanted to come on and be on an episode. So I really do appreciate it. I would like to give you some time to kind of just highlight what you have going on right now that people can kind of jump in and follow you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Always a blast. Always love talking about movies. Biggest thing right now, I obviously have my movies coming out. Hopefully in the next couple months. You can always follow me on Instagram or YouTube. YouTube's kind of my biggest, but everything's a Wes Clark film. All the socials. Biggest thing right now is I'm running a news outlet that's nonpartisan. So we take 4 articles, 2 from the left, 2 on the right, on the same article, same story, and then we filter it through an AI algorithm to find the overlapping facts and then kind of where they diverge. So kind of trying to serve that question of, oh, do you read both sides? And finally, you can say yes. So that's called the Filter News Channel. It's thefilternewschannel.com. I recommend anyone join the newsletter. That's kind of our biggest thing. That's Monday through Friday. We don't spam you. It's one a day, biggest stories, and it's a good way to have common ground facts without getting inflamed about every little thing that happens around the world. So hopefully a better community of political people who want to be engaged, but without being dramatic and kind of over the top. So but yeah, that's honestly my biggest thing right now. That's what I'm pushing the most.
Very cool. Well, again, thanks for being on, and we'll definitely jump on that. And looking forward to your other projects. I know you got some things in the fire, and hope that they turn out. And looking forward to seeing them when they do. And we'll definitely promote it to our
Yeah,
audience
for sure.
Yeah,
Awesome. Yeah, no, I
Awesome.
appreciate it. Always happy to be here.
cool.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to jump over to our website, moviesthatmakeyoupodcast.com, see all of our links. Follow us on Instagram so you never miss an episode, a live stream, or an interview. And until next time, keep watching movies.